Virginia State University was founded in 1882. For the last 150 years, it's been seeding the worlds of agriculture and research. Come on, let me take you where the food comes from.
Dr. Cheryl Mango,
Yes.
you are a professor here at Virginia State University, and you teach a very, very unique, first of its kind course. I'm going to ask you to do the honors of telling us what you do.
Well, I have the honor of teaching the world's first and the nation's first HBCU history course. You are actually sitting in a world marvel. The historically Black college and university, this is a world marvel. The reason why I say that and the reason why you hear the term historically Black college and university is because we have the record. We are the only institutions in the world explicitly created to train the formerly enslaved population of the society and turn them into a professional, thriving class. You have to remember, for 250 years, people like myself were not allowed to read and write. So my language, my ability to dialogue with you would have been completely different had it not been for these institutions giving us the ability to learn how to read and write, learn how to articulate ourselves, to learn how to put our ideas forward. So this is something that is unmatched in history, a set of institutions that have that particular mandate and that particular charge.
And another key part of that mandate was also to teach the art and science of agriculture.
Yes, you have to understand that African Americans have a very unique and particular expertise in agriculture. As a matter of fact, we helped to further that field before we were able to read and write.
Sure.
As we were, in bondage, we were largely experts in agriculture.
The capacity was there, the ability was there, the opportunity was not there. It strikes me, VSU was founded in 1882. It strikes me that the first classes here were the first generation of Black Americans who were born free.
Yes, and VSU has a very unique history because Virginia State University was the first institution, the first, not just college, but the first institution that was tax funded explicitly for African Americans. In other words, we were the first four-year state-funded Black college,
Wow.
but the first four-year state-funded institution for Black people in the United States.
This is literally where the door to opportunity opened.
Yes, because you have to understand, of course, we know tax dollars have always been a political issue, but the idea of right after the Civil War, HBCUs became a unifying force. They helped to save the nation. We were on the brink of collapse.
Sure.
We had just fought a war, and at the ending of that war, 4 million African Americans were illiterate. So we had, not only did we have the nation that was torn apart, what were you going to do with this 4 million illiterate population? These institutions had a commitment to living up to the highest ideals of our nation prior to being forced to do so with legislation, like some other institutions might have. These institutions had a commitment to making us live up to our greatest potential. They did that without force. They believed in us. They never made people walk through the back door. They were always a place where people that were white, Black, Asian could come to. They never excluded anyone.
Well, that's because another thing that we forget is that there are some people who've always just been people.
Right.
And they only ever saw other people as people.
Exactly.
And we lose that through the lens of history sometimes as well.
And that's why I love talking about HBCU history, because it's one of the few areas where we could talk about a place where we always treated people as people. We never discriminated against people. And one of the reasons why we are still relevant is because we continue to do what we do, and we do it well. We continue to put forth the best and the brightest of that formerly enslaved population. We continue the transformation process of moving up people from a place where they couldn't read and write to now you can look at me and say, Dr. Mango. And we love what we have contributed to this country, and we continue to contribute. And so I think that that's why we are relevant, because nobody else, it does not matter how much money you have, you cannot buy the HBCU model.
Right.
You cannot buy HBCU culture. It's our bread and butter, and it cannot be reproduced. It's something that is authentic. It's just, you deal with agriculture. It's like a seed that it germinates. It's a culture that pollinates, that cannot be reproduced. It's something that only we can do, and we like what we do, and we believe that we want to continue to do it because we do it well.
Dr. Derek Scott, Dean of the College of Health and Sciences at Virginia State University. But once upon a time, I'll put you in the Wayback Machine for a second, you were just Derek Scott, the freshman at Virginia State University. When you wake up every morning and you get ready to report and come in here and get about the business of shaping young lives and teaching people, preparing the next generation, how often does that other Derek Scott come into your head?
I think that's every day, because when you look at this job as a dean, you have a responsibility to the students and a responsibility also to the faculty and the staff. And so being a former student here at Virginia State University, I have a bird's eye view on what our current students are experiencing in terms of being able to relate to them, understand the different kind of experiences, especially being a first-time student from a small town. So just these different experiences from when I was a freshman really play into my day-to-day job in terms of when I'm relating and advocating for my students, because I do have that experience as a former student here at Virginia State University.
What was your major?
My major is biology.
Biology. So when you came here, what were you thinking? What were you thinking you might be? That age-old question, what am I going to be when I grow up?
I knew I wanted to do biology. I didn't know what that looked like, right? And so coming from a place where I didn't have a lot of opportunities on the educational side.
Where are you from?
I'm from South Carolina, low country. And from a rural place, a rural county, Hampton County, Varnville.
Know it very well.
Oh man, so you understand a lot of the challenges.
I understand the challenges. I understand the lack of economic opportunity. I understand it's one of the most impoverished places in America, honestly.
Yeah, that's not an understatement. And so coming here, I was happy to be able to have an opportunity away from home, and then really relying on my professors to mold me into like what this really could be in terms of opportunity for a career. And it really was planted the seed for me to go on and get my master's and my PhD, was my experience with my faculty here at Virginia State.
At what point did that shift come from wanting to be a biologist to saying, no, I want to impact the future instead of one day at a time, multiple days at a time, spread over the course of many lives?
I think it happened in my PhD program. So from here, of course, I did my undergraduate here, then I went to Virginia Tech to do my master's and my PhD at the University of South Carolina. And so I was trained to be a scientist for most of my career. And then once I was able to finish my PhD and do a postdoc at South Carolina, my first opportunity was at a HBCU at Delaware State University. And so doing that job, being a scientist, is when I really got the inclination that there's a way to affect, instead of having my lab space with, let's say, 15 graduate students, undergraduate students doing research, I was able to really have an opportunity to see how can my different ideas shape a whole cohort of freshmen instead of just the students that are in my individual bubble.
Yusuf Omer, they kind of like you around here, the kids do. You're the student body president, president of the Student Government Association. Let's talk about your trek. What brought you to Virginia State University? What's your history? What's your background? How did you wind up right here where everybody could look up and say, yeah, we're gonna make him president?
But yeah, 4 years back, college, I'm a first generation college student here in the United States.
First generation?
Yes, sir. My parents were immigrants from the Republic of Sudan, northeastern Africa, right below Egypt. So we moved here when I was about 10 years old, relocated to Baltimore, Maryland, and College was always an option, right? But Virginia State was the only choice. That's how I like to really say it. I was admitted on the spot when a counselor from Virginia State, admissions counselor, came to my high school. They had a tent set up and I was admitted on the spot. So when I brought that certificate home, my parents were like, he's going to college. And it was just it was the greatest honor of my life to say, I'm gonna go to a 4-year institution at HBCU with that. And like we talked about earlier, you know, it's not too close to home.
Sure.
But if anything happens at home, my father in Sudan, he held a PhD, doctor, works at Johns Hopkins now. So for me, education and academics was always the way out. It was my father's way out and here in the United States. I mean, we come from humble beginnings, but it's always been instilled in me from a young age that education is the key to opportunity. And as much as you sow into the world, as much as you reap. That's kind of always been a lesson that my dad has always taught me, which I'm grateful for. I love you, Dad. But yeah, I mean, education is the opportunity, but education at Virginia State is even a greater opportunity because here we get to meet with employers and corporate partners every single Wednesday at our College of Business, Reginald Lewis College of Business. Our Career Services Department, who's the executive director of that, is my advisor for student government. So the opportunities we have here are endless. It's a plethora of opportunities. We have a career fair that we hold in this very same building every single year, and employers come from all over the world. I mean, I've met here with Google, IBM. We've met with the Petersburg Public Schools. We've met with police departments from all over the nation who recruit from Virginia State. When you look at Virginia Hall, when we look at the new Alfred W. Harris Academic Commons building coming up, Alfred W. Harris was the first African-American member of Congress to represent the Commonwealth of Virginia, right? When we look at just the many graduates that we have from Virginia State, I think they've all been pioneers and they've paved the way in their own right in every single field. Reginald Lewis is the first African-American billionaire to head a billion-dollar company. So this, like we see it, for us, is reality here, right? It's not a far-fetched dream. It's reality that every single student here at Virginia State University can have their name on the building if they choose to do so, right? Because they're gonna work, they're gonna, you know, we have this thing, like we will grind, we will play, we will always slay, but at the end of the day, we will graduate here from Virginia State University, the greatest institution in the land. But we will graduate to contribute something to society that we did not get ourselves.
It's where greatness happens.
Absolutely. Greater happens at Virginia
Greater
State.
happens.
Greater happens here. Yes, sir.
Greater happens here.
That's
That's Eldon Burton.
Yes, sir.
No university, no matter how great, stands alone. It all has to come together for university to continue to be great and to get greater. And we all know VSU, the motto here is greater happens here. It takes a lot to bring that together. Now let's talk about your history. Where are you from?
So I've lived a little bit all over. My dad was a pastor.
I've walked that way. PKs, right?
Yes, PKs.
I'm telling you, I know what shoes you walked in.
Yep.
And those shoes change locations sometimes every 2 or 3 years.
Very often, very often. So I've lived in Alabama, Ohio, North Carolina, Maryland, Delaware,
Wow.
DC, and of course Virginia. But my mom was an elementary school teacher, so it kind of coupled together pretty well to bounce around. But you know, I came to Virginia State because my uncle has taught here for 40 plus years. He just retired, but I knew he lived across the street and I didn't want to be too far from a home cooked meal. And then of course, you know, they had the football team and all the things that I wanted as a student. My grandmother, her kind of path and things that she saw for upward social mobility for the family existed in education. And so she had a rule where we all had to go to an HBCU for undergrad. And then we can go wherever we wanted to go for grad, but we had to go to an HBCU for undergrad. So I knew my options and I picked the one closest to my uncle, and she went here to VSU. She was National Alumni President, and my uncle taught here. Her daughter went here, and I have cousins that were Miss VSU and that came here as well.
So your whole family, this is a legacy school for you.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Majority of my family either came here or went to St. Paul's.
So that was kind of easy for you. Were you an enthusiastic student? Were you happy to be coming here? Were you reluctant? Were you, I don't care, I got to do something?
Well, I knew I had to go to an HBCU, and I knew this was a...
That had been made clear.
Right, that was well before high school. We already knew that. I knew what fraternity I wanted to join. I kind of had the vision. I knew I wanted to play football and all those things, but I didn't know exactly how far it was going to take me. And I've seen some pretty amazing things because I've come here.
Wow. Now we talk about the role of historically black colleges and universities, the impact and the import. We've heard some amazing statistics. Something like 75% of all black PhDs are the product of HBCUs, 50% of all black attorneys. It's an extraordinary track record.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we're known as Virginia's Opportunity University. 70% of our students are Pell eligible. And so, you know, we're the most affordable institution and one of the best at providing access and affordability. So we pride ourselves on giving that opportunity to those students.
And that's something we discussed with Dr. Cheryl Mango from the university here, is that HBCUs, land-grant universities, VSU is both, agriculture and mechanical colleges. These were not schools that were set up for the elite. These were schools that were set up for everybody.
We're proud of our history. We're proud that, you know, in many ways, we've solved a lot of the issues that Virginia was trying to catch up to, providing access to a quality education for those who come from low income.
Now, when you were a student here, were you as aware of that weight of history? Do you feel like students at VSU are generally aware of that? I mean, look, college kids are college kids and everybody's gonna have a good time. And some people are gonna be more serious than other people. But is there a sense of history here and a sense of that accomplishment and a sense of where it's come from?
Definitely. So, I mean, when you walk into the College of Business, you see a picture of Reginald F. Lewis, right? And you have the name already there, so you wonder who that is.
Right.
And then you hear he's an alum. You know, we have the Fountain of Knowledge, which is right over here in the middle. That Fountain of Knowledge has a quote around it from our founder, Alfred W. Harris, that basically says he wants a place where all can come and drink from the Fountain of Knowledge until their ambitions are satiated. And so, you know, and then the building's named after Alfred W. Harris, Harris Hall. So, you know, there's all the buildings that are around are either former professors or either former presidents, and they all have history and stories to them.
Something tells me that at each of your stops here, first on your undergrad journey and your postgrad journey and now in your professional capacity, probably your understanding and awareness and appreciation of that history and legacy probably deepens year by year.
It does, it does. I mean, this spot right here, for me, and this is just for me, I mean, you have the College of Business where it kind of started. I went on to Capitol Hill. The dean gave me a great internship opportunity to work on Capitol Hill. I did government relations and it kind of came full circle. And when it came back full circle, you know, you have a building that's being built that I went and lobbied for.
Wow.
And so you can kind of see the progression. Wow. For me, I can see the progression from going from here to where we are at currently, and then having the Fountain of Knowledge in the middle that I've drank from and that my family's drank from. Just, it's kind of one of my favorite spots.
Well, first, Chip, I want to give you a greeting from this place that sits high above the Appomattox. That's a river, you know. Yeah. On this lofty hill, this place we affectionately call Virginia State University, where since 1882, we've been transforming lives. Welcome.
So proud to be here, Dr. Corley. Dr. Robert Corley, you're the Dean of the College of Agriculture. Agriculture is really the heartbeat of Virginia State University. Agriculture is what transformed a nation, transformed a people. It's what created opportunity. It's what opened doors for opportunity. And you know, when we talk about HBCUs, a lot of time, everybody knows Tuskegee. Everybody knows Grambling. We forget, this is a whole system. Yeah. This is a whole system.
So it's 19 strong, as we say.
Wow.
19 strong, and collectively the impact that we have had, not just in one community, but just as we talked about with individuals like Carver, across America and across the world, being able to produce healthy foods in times in which we had land erosion that was really, really threatening our survivability as a nation. And it really speaks back to this idea of what we do to reach the common person, to help build them up. As we talk about what we do through our small farm outreach programs, that's the way that we're able to, and through our extension, which is, they're connected, that's the way that we're able to now get farmers to now make these kind of investments. Not just investments in what they're going to do, but we show them how to do it so that they can be profitable. Because at the end of the day, the farmer still has to be profitable.
And if they're not going to grow.
Right.
No one goes to work and expects not to get paid. Yet sometimes we expect our farmers to settle for very, very little and often barely subsistence.
And so you mentioned earlier policies. And so one of the ways through USDA, through the Farm Bill, they create policies that are very supportive to make sure that agriculture continues to thrive. A word that people have often said or phrased is agriculture or food security is national security.
True. For 150 years, Virginia State University has blazed trails and made impacts that will go on forever and ever and ever. Fortunately, they're not the only school like this, but I bet they would tell you they're the best out here. Where the food comes from.